The night sky above Seoul looked peaceful, but Captain Jinwoo Park knew better than to trust appearances. 300 kilometers above the city, his team worked inside the most advanced listening post humanity had ever built. The deep space. Communications array floated in orbit like a metal flower, its massive dishes pointed toward the stars. Jinwoo sipped his coffee and watched the data streams flow across dozens of monitors. For 20 years, humans had been listening to space, hoping to find signs of other intelligent life. So far, they had found nothing but cosmic noise and dead radio signals from long-dead civilizations. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," said Minji Kim from her station. She was the best communications specialist in the Earth Defense Force, and her fingers danced across the control panel like a pianist playing a difficult song. "This signal is different from anything we've seen before." Jinwoo walked over to her. "Station." "Different how?" "It's using quantum frequencies," Minji explained, her eyes wide with excitement. "The mathematics are incredibly complex. This isn't some random space noise, Captain. This is a real message." At the next station, Dong-Yun Lee looked up from his translation algorithms. He was Earth's leading expert in xenolinguistics, the study of alien languages. Most people thought his job was useless since humans had never found any aliens to talk to. Tonight, that might change. "I'm running the signal through every pattern recognition system we have," Dong-Yun said. "If this is really a language, I'll crack it." Jinwoo felt his heart beating faster. After decades of silence, were they finally hearing from another civilization? "How long will it take?" "Give me an hour," Dong-Yun replied, already lost in his work. The next hour felt like the longest in Jinwoo's life. He paced around the command center, checking on his team of 12 technicians and scientists. Everyone worked with unusual intensity. They all knew they might be witnessing the most important moment in human history. Finally, Dong-Yun called, "Out." "I've got it, Captain, you need to hear this." Jinwoo hurried over as Dong-Yun activated the translation system. A computerized voice began speaking in clear English, translating the alien message in real time. "This is Veltar High Command to all fleet commanders. Emergency Protocol 7 is now in effect. The ancient enemy has awakened. The Devourers have returned." The room fell silent. Everyone stopped working to listen. All member species of the Galactic Council are ordered to evacuate immediately to the Outer Rim colonies. Do not attempt to fight. Do not attempt to negotiate. The Devourers cannot be reasoned with or stopped. Jinwoo's blood turned cold. "Galactic Council? There's a whole civilization out there?" The message continued. "Repeat, all hope is lost. The key, Devourers will consume the inner systems first, then work outward. Primitive worlds will be consumed last, giving us approximately 36 hours to evacuate. All Council fleets are to rendezvous at coordinates." The signal cut off, leaving only static. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Minji broke the silence. "Captain, did they say primitive worlds?" "I think they mean Earth," Dong-Hyun said, quietly. "We're one of the primitive worlds." Jinwoo sat down heavily in his chair. In less than 5 minutes, everything humanity believed about the universe had changed. They weren't alone. There was a galactic council made up of multiple alien species, and something called the Devourers was coming to destroy everything, including Earth. "Sir," said Lieutenant Taeyoung Cho from the sensor station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving through the outer solar system. Whatever these Devourers are, they're already here." Jinwoo looked at the sensor display and felt his stomach drop. 12 enormous objects were moving through space beyond Pluto's orbit. Each one was the size of a small moon, and they were heading straight for the inner planets. "Minji, open a channel to Earth Defense Command immediately." Jinwoo ordered. "Priority Alpha. Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Park at Deep Space Array 7. I need to speak with Admiral Choi immediately. Tell her we have a Code Black situation." Code Black was the highest emergency level in the Earth Defense Force. It meant the planet was in immediate danger. In the 70 years since the EDF was founded, Code Black had never been declared. Within minutes, Admiral Haeon Choi's face appeared on the main screen. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had spent her entire career preparing Earth's defenses against threats that might never come. Tonight, those threats were real. "Captain Park, explain the situation," Admiral Choi said. Jinwoo took a deep breath. "Admiral, we've intercepted an alien transmission. There's a galactic council made up of 12 different species. They're being attacked by something called the Devourers, and these attackers are heading for Earth." "How long do we have?" "According to the message, 36 hours. Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment. "Send me everything you have immediately. Full data package. I'm calling an emergency session of the World Council." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, there's something else. The aliens called us a primitive world. They don't think we're advanced enough to fight." "Maybe they're right," Admiral Choi said grimly. "But, primitive or not, Earth is our home. Send me that data, Captain. We have work to do." The transmission ended, and Jinwoo turned to his team. "I want continuous monitoring of those objects. Track their speed, direction, and any energy signatures. If they so much as hiccup, I want to know about it." "Sir," Lieutenant Cho called out. "The objects are accelerating. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in 34 hours. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens had been wrong. They didn't have 36 hours. They had less than 34. Over the next few hours, more alien transmissions filled the airwaves. Most were in languages Dongyun couldn't translate, but some came through clearly. The picture they painted was terrifying. The Veltar Empire, one of the most powerful members of the Galactic Council, had lost their home system in less than 6 hours. The Corvani Federation's entire fleet had been destroyed trying to stop just one Devourer ship. Species with technology thousands of years more advanced than humanity were running in panic. "Captain," Minji said, her voice shaking, "I'm intercepting evacuation orders from at least 8 different alien civilizations. They're all fleeing to the same region of space." "The Outer Rim," Dongyun added. "They keep mentioning the Outer Rim colonies. It sounds like they're abandoning the entire inner galaxy." Jinwoo stared at the tactical display showing the 12 Devourer ships. Each one was bigger than any space station humans had ever built. If civilizations thousands of years more advanced couldn't stop them, what chance did Earth have? "Sir, incoming message from Earth Defense Command," Minji announced. Admiral Choi appeared on screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Jinwoo recognized General Woo Jin Kang, the head of Earth's military forces, and Dr. Seung-min Yoon, the planet's leading expert on ancient alien archaeology. "Captain Park, we need your team to keep monitoring alien communications," Admiral Choi said. "We're getting reports of massive structures throughout the solar system. Dr. Yoon believes they might be connected to ancient ruins we've found on Mars." Dr. Yoon leaned forward. "Captain, 20 years ago we found ruins on Mars that we couldn't understand. The technology was too advanced, and the writing was in a language unlike anything we'd ever seen. But some of the symbols match energy patterns we're detecting from these Devourer ships." "What are you saying, Doctor?" Jinwoo asked. "I think the Devourers have been here before, a long time ago. Whatever civilization built those ruins on Mars might have fought them." General Kang spoke up. "We're mobilizing every ship in the Earth Defense Fleet. It's not much, but it's all we have. Keep listening to those alien transmissions. Any information about Devourer weaknesses could save millions of lives." The transmission ended, and Jinwoo looked around at his team. They were scared, but they were still working. That was what humans did. When faced with impossible odds, they kept working. "Lieutenant Cho, I want you to focus on the Devourer ships specifically. Look for patterns in their movement, energy output, anything that might tell us how they operate. Minji, keep monitoring alien communications. I want to know everything the Galactic Council knows about these things. Dongyun, work with Dr. Yoon's team on Mars. See if you can translate any of those ancient ruins. If someone fought the Devourers before, we need to know how they did it." As his team worked, Jinwoo stood at the main viewing port and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12 alien civilizations were running for their lives. Their technology was beyond human understanding. Their knowledge accumulated over thousands of years. And they were all terrified of the things heading toward Earth. But humans had something those aliens might not have: They had never learned to run. For their entire history, humans had faced impossible odds and found ways to survive. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They had crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. Maybe the aliens were right. Maybe humans were primitive, but primitive didn't always mean weak. "Captain," Minji called out, "I'm getting another transmission. This one's different. It's not from the Galactic Council." "Put it through." A new voice filled the command center. This one sounded older, more tired. "This is Commander Zeth Kohler of the exploration vessel Farseeker. We are monitoring the primitive world in the third solar orbit. The emergency session of the United Earth Defense Council began at exactly 0400 hours Geneva time. Admiral Haeon Choi had never called a meeting this urgent before, and she prayed she would never have to call another one. The council chamber was a circular room deep beneath the Swiss mountains, designed to survive even nuclear war. Today it might need to survive something much worse. Holographic displays showed the positions of the 12 Devourer ships as they moved steadily toward Earth. President Yoon Ha-jung sat at the head of the table, her face calm despite the terrible news she had received an hour ago. Around her sat the leaders of Earth's military, scientific, and political organizations. Each of them had been pulled from their beds to face the end of the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Yoon began, "we have 30 hours before Earth faces an attack from an enemy we don't understand. Admiral Choi will brief us on what we know." Admiral Choi stood and activated the main display. "At 2300 hours last night, our deep space array intercepted alien communications warning of an attack by entities called the Devourers. We have confirmed 12 massive objects approaching Earth at incredible speed." The display showed the Devourer ships moving through the solar system. Each one was roughly spherical, but covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as they moved. "How big are these things?" asked Defense Minister Kyung-jae Lim. "Each ship is approximately 8 kilometers in diameter," Admiral Choi replied. "That makes them larger than our biggest space stations, but size isn't our main concern." She switched to a new display showing energy readings. "These ships are consuming everything in their path. Asteroids, space debris, even cosmic dust disappears completely when it touches their hulls. They appear to be converting matter directly into energy." General Wu Jin Kang leaned forward. "What about the alien civilizations? Surely they're fighting back?" "That's the problem, General. They're not fighting. They're running." Admiral Choi played an audio recording of alien transmissions. "Every species in what they call the Galactic Council is evacuating to the outer regions of the galaxy. They've abandoned their homeworlds without firing a single shot." Science Minister Dr. Mi Kyung-seo shook her head. "These aliens have technology thousands of years more advanced than ours. If they can't fight these Devourers, how can we?" "That brings us to our next briefing," Admiral Choi said. "Dr. Yoon has made a discovery that might change everything, Dr." Seongmin Yoon stood up and activated his own presentation. He looked tired but excited, like a man who had been working all night on the puzzle of his lifetime. 20 years ago, we found extensive ruins on Mars," Dr. Yoon began. "The civilization that built them was incredibly advanced, far beyond current human technology. We've been slowly translating their records ever since." The display showed images of ancient Martian structures and the strange symbols carved into their walls. "Tonight, we made a breakthrough. These ruins contain detailed technical specifications for weapons designed specifically to fight something called the Devourers, the same entities heading toward Earth right now." Excited murmurs filled the room. Commander Na-young Shin raised her hand. "Dr. Yoon, are you saying these weapons could actually stop the Devourers?" "I believe so. The Martian records describe a war that lasted for centuries. The Martians eventually won, but at a terrible cost. Their entire civilization was destroyed in the process." Dr. Yoon switched to a technical diagram showing a complex weapon system. "This is what they called a quantum disruptor. It fires a beam that breaks apart molecular bonds at the subatomic level. According to the records, it was the only weapon that could damage Devourer ships." General Kang studied the diagram. "Could we build something like this?" "That's the question," Dr. Yoon admitted. The technology is incredibly advanced. It requires materials and processes we've never worked with before, but our best engineers think it might be possible. How long would it take? President Young asked. Under normal circumstances, decades. But if we mobilize every resource on Earth, work around the clock with no safety margins, Dr. Yoon paused. Maybe 24 hours for a prototype. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They had 30 hours before the Devourers arrived, and it would take 24 hours to build a single experimental weapon. Commander Shin spoke first. With respect, Dr. Yoon, this seems like suicide. We should focus on evacuation. Get as many people off Earth as possible. Evacuate to where? General Kang demanded. Our fastest ships can barely reach Mars. We don't have the technology to evacuate. 7 billion people. Then we save who we can, Commander Shin replied. It's better than losing everyone. No, said General Kang firmly. We fight. Humans have never run from a fight, and we won't start now. President Young listened to the debate for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. What exactly would building these weapons involve? Dr. Yoon pulled up another display. We would need to convert every major industrial facility on Earth to weapons production. The quantum disruptors require exotic materials that can only be created in particle accelerators. We'd have to strip every research facility on the planet. What about our existing defenses? Asked Fleet Admiral Soyeon Bai, the commander of Earth Space Forces. Useless, Admiral Choi said bluntly. Our most powerful weapons are nuclear missiles. According to the alien transmissions, the Galactic Council tried nuclear weapons against the Devourers. The explosions were absorbed and converted into energy to feed the ships. So our choice is to build experimental weapons we've never tested, or evacuate a fraction of our population and hope for the best, President Young summarized. There's a third option, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Engineer Jahoon Lim walking into the chamber. He was the head of Earth's most advanced research facility, and he looked like he had been running. I'm sorry for being late, Jihoon said, taking his seat. I've been analyzing the Martian weapon designs for the past 6 hours. What's your assessment, Engineer Lim? President Jung asked. The quantum disruptors are incredibly dangerous, Jihoon said. Not just to the Devourers, but to us. The energy output is so massive that firing one could crack a planet's surface. That's probably why the Galactic Council banned their construction. Banned their construction? Admiral Choi asked. According to the alien communications captain, Park intercepted, weapons like this are considered too dangerous to exist. Every member of the Galactic Council agreed never to build them. General Kang slammed his hand on the table. So they'd rather die than use weapons that could save them. It makes sense, Dr. Yoon said quietly. These weapons could destroy entire star systems if used incorrectly. The Martians probably knew this when they built them. It's why their civilization didn't survive. The room was quiet again as everyone considered the implications. They could build weapons that might save Earth, but using them could destroy the planet anyway. What's the probability that the weapons would work? President Jung asked. Unknown, Jihoon admitted. We'd be building them based on billion-year-old designs using materials and processes we've never attempted. The failure rate could be anywhere, from 50 to 90%. And if they do work, what's the probability they'd damage Earth? Also unknown. The Martian records are incomplete, but based on the energy calculations, Jihoon paused. There's a significant chance that firing these weapons would cause massive environmental damage. Earthquakes, tsunamis, atmospheric disruption. Commander Shin leaned back in her chair. So we can run and definitely lose most of our population, or fight and probably lose all of our population. That's one way to look at it, General Kang said. Or we can choose to die fighting instead of running like cowards. There's nothing cowardly about survival, Commander Shin shot back. If we evacuate, at least humanity continues. President Young stood up and walked to the display showing the Devourer ships. They had moved noticeably closer, even during the meeting. How many people could we evacuate, she asked. Admiral Bay consulted her tablet. Our entire fleet could carry maybe 50,000 people, and that's assuming we strip out all military equipment and pack them in like cargo. 50,000 out. Of 7 billion, President Young repeated. And where would they go? Mars colonies, asteroid mining stations, the research outpost on Europa. They could survive for a few years, maybe longer. And then what? The Devourers would eventually find them anyway. President Young turned back to the table. Engineer Lim, if we decide to build these weapons, what would you need? Jihoon pulled up a list on his tablet. Every particle accelerator on Earth working simultaneously. Every heavy industrial facility converted to quantum component manufacturing. Every physicist, engineer, and technician working without breaks, and about 6 different miracles. Time frame? 20 hours for the first prototype if everything goes perfectly. Another 4 hours to mount it on a delivery system. What kind of delivery system? That's another problem. The weapon is too large for our existing missiles. We'd have to mount it on a spacecraft and fly it directly at the Devourer ships. The implications of that statement hung in the air. Someone would have to pilot the weapon directly at the enemy, with no chance of survival. President Young looked around the table at each council member. These were the people who would. Engineer Jihoon Lim had not slept in 18 hours, but he had never felt more awake in his life. Around him, the Mars Foundry complex buzzed with activity as hundreds of engineers and technicians worked to build something that should have been impossible. The quantum disruptor took shape slowly in the main assembly bay. It was a massive cylindrical device 30 meters long and filled with components that pushed human technology to its absolute limits. Every piece had to be perfect. There would be no time for testing. Jihoon, we have a problem, called Dr. Hee-Soon-jang from the materials laboratory. She was Earth's leading expert in exotic matter physics, and for the past 12 hours, she had been trying to create substances that existed only in theoretical equations. Jihoon jogged over to her workstation, where a particle accelerator the size of a building hummed with dangerous energy. What's wrong? The quantum mesh isn't stable, Hee-Soon said, pointing to a shimmering field contained in a magnetic bottle. According to the Martian designs, this should hold together for hours. Mine falls apart in minutes. Can you fix it? Maybe. But I need more power than we've ever generated before. I'm talking about channeling the output of 3 fusion reactors simultaneously. Jihoon looked at the readings on her display. The energy requirements were staggering. Do it, we'll find the power somehow. Across the complex, pilot Soo-Jin Han was having her own problems. She stood in the modification bay, staring at the spacecraft that was supposed to carry the quantum disruptor to its target. The ship had been stripped down to its bare essentials and rebuilt around the weapon system. It's not going to work, she told Captain Taehyung Ro, who was overseeing the ship modifications. The weapon weighs too much. We can't generate enough thrust to reach combat speed. Taehyung examined the technical specifications. What if we remove the life support systems? Then I'll suffocate before I reach the target. What about the armor? Plating? Then the Devourers will destroy me before I can fire. They stared at the ship in frustrated silence. The quantum disruptor was incredibly powerful, but it was also incredibly heavy. The delivery system was becoming an impossible engineering challenge. Wait, Soo-Jin said suddenly. What if we don't try to make the ship faster? What if we make the weapon smaller? She called Jihoon over to the modification bay. When he arrived, still covered in grease and quantum residue, she explained her idea. Instead of building one massive disruptor, what if we built 12 smaller ones? Each ship in our fleet could carry one weapon. Jihoon shook his head. The power requirements scale exponentially. 12 small disruptors would need more energy than one large one, and we don't have 12 fusion reactors. Actually, said a new voice behind them, we do. They turned to see Admiral Haeon Choi walking into the bay, accompanied by Fleet Admiral Soyeon Bae. The admiral looked tired but determined. Every ship in the Earth Defense Fleet has its own fusion reactor, Admiral Choi continued. They're smaller than the ones here on Mars, but if we modify them, it could work, Jihoon said, his mind racing through the calculations. But we'd have to completely rebuild the weapon systems on every ship, and the pilots would need neural interfaces to control the quantum targeting systems. Neural interfaces? Sujin asked. What kind of neural interfaces? Jihoon looked uncomfortable. Direct brain-to-computer connections. The quantum disruptors require split-second timing that human reflexes can't match. The pilot's mind would need to be linked directly to the weapon system. What's the survival rate for neural interface? Surgery? Admiral Bay asked. In laboratory conditions, about 90%. Under combat conditions with rush surgery and no recovery time, Jihoon paused. Maybe 60%. The Bay fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They were asking pilots to undergo experimental surgery with a 40% chance of death, just for the privilege of flying suicide missions against impossible odds. I'll do it, Sujin said immediately. Sign me up for the first surgery. Sujin, you don't understand the risks, Taehyung warned. The neural interface could kill you before you even reach combat. So could the Devourers, she replied. At least this way I'm fighting back. Within an hour, word of the neural interface requirement had spread throughout the fleet. Admiral Bay expected to have trouble finding volunteers. Instead, she had the opposite problem. Every pilot in the Earth Defense Force wanted to volunteer, even after the medical risks were explained. Dr. Min-Woo Pak, Earth's leading neurosurgeon, found himself performing the most dangerous operations of his career. The neural interface required drilling into the pilot's skull and connecting microscopic wires directly to their brain tissue. One wrong move could cause permanent brain damage or death. Patient 7 is ready for surgery, announced Nurse Youngmi Cha as they prepared for another operation. The patient was Lieutenant Jisoo Kwon, a 26-year-old pilot who had been flying combat missions since she was 21. Lieutenant Kwon, Dr. Pak said as they prepared the anesthesia, you understand that this procedure has never been attempted under these conditions? I understand, Doctor. But if I don't do this, nobody gets to fly combat missions ever again. The surgery took 4 hours. When Jisoo woke up, she had a small device implanted behind her right ear that connected her nervous system directly to a spaceship's computer systems. The technology was so advanced that she could think a command and have her ship respond instantly. But the neural interface came with a price. Pilots who survived the surgery reported strange side effects. They could feel their ship's engines like they were part of their own body. They could sense incoming missiles as if they were physical threats to their own skin. The boundary between pilot and machine became blurred. Meanwhile, back at the Mars foundry, Jihoon was dealing with a different set of problems. The quantum disruptors were incredibly complex, and every component had to be manufactured to impossible standards. A single flaw in the quantum mesh could cause the weapon to explode instead of firing. We're losing too many components to manufacturing defects, reported Supervisor Chan-Woo Im from the assembly line. At this rate, we'll only have 8 working weapons. That's not enough, Jihoon said. We need at least 10 to have a chance against 12 Devourer ships. Maybe we could modify the existing weapons to increase their power output, suggested Dr. Jung. Absolutely not. These weapons are already operating at the edge of theoretical limits. Any more power and they'll tear themselves apart. Jihoon stared at the assembly line where teams of technicians worked frantically to complete each weapon. They had been working for 16 hours straight, and the stress was showing. Mistakes were becoming more frequent. We need a different approach, he decided. Instead of building more weapons, let's focus on making the ones we have as reliable as possible. He called together his senior engineers for an emergency meeting. I want every weapon tested 3 times before installation. I don't care if it slows us down. A weapon that doesn't fire is useless. As the engineers dispersed to implement the new quality control measures, Jihoon received an urgent message from Earth. The Devourer ships had accelerated again and would reach Earth orbit in less than 10 hours. Admiral Choi's face appeared on the communication screen. Jihoon, what's our status? We have 8 confirmed working weapons and 2 more in final assembly. The neural interface surgeries are complete, and the pilots are training with their new systems. How are they adapting to the interfaces? Better than expected. But Admiral, there's something you need to know. The neural interfaces are affecting the pilot's psychology. They're becoming more aggressive, more willing to take risks. Admiral Choi frowned. Is that a problem? I don't know. Maybe it's exactly what we need for a suicide mission. The communication ended and Ji-hoon returned to the assembly bay. The 10th quantum disruptor was nearly complete, its gleaming surfaces reflecting the lights of the foundry. It was beautiful in a deadly way, like a work of art designed to destroy worlds. Ji-hoon, called Hai-soon from across the bay. I need to show you something. She led him to her laboratory, where the exotic matter containment system hummed with barely controlled energy. I've been analyzing the quantum field patterns, and I found something disturbing. She brought up a holographic display showing the weapon's energy output. The disruptor doesn't just break apart molecular bonds, it creates a chain reaction that spreads through any material it touches. What kind of chain reaction? Complete molecular dissolution. If we fire this weapon at a devourer ship, the effect won't stop at the ship's hull. It will spread to anything nearby, asteroids, space debris, even the vacuum of space itself. Ji-hoon stared at the display in horror. You're saying the weapon could destroy more than just the target? I'm saying it could destroy everything in a sphere roughly 1,000 kilometers in diameter, including any human ships that get too close. This was worse than Ji-hoon had imagined. Not only were they asking pilots to fly suicide missions, but they were also asking them to carry weapons that could destroy their own fleet. Does anyone else know about this? He asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Ji-hoon thought, for a moment. If they told the pilots about the expanded destruction radius, some might refuse the mission. But if they didn't tell them, they would be sending people to die. Captain Tae-hyung-ro sat in the command chair of the EDS Defiant, watching the tactical display as 10 human ships spread out across Earth's orbital space. Each vessel carried a quantum disruptor and a pilot with a neural interface, ready to face an enemy that had never been defeated. The Devourer fleet hung in space like 12 black suns, each ship 8 kilometers across and radiating energy patterns that made human instruments scream with warnings. They had stopped just outside Earth's gravitational well, as if studying their prey before consuming it. All ships, report status. Taehyung broadcast on the Fleet Command channel. Warrior ready for combat, came the voice of Major Dongwoo Park. Guardian systems green, replied Lieutenant Jisoo Kwon. One by one, the pilots reported ready. 10 ships against 12 alien dreadnoughts. The mathematics were simple, but mathematics had never stopped humans before. Captain, called Sensor, Operator Jin Young Seo from his station. I'm detecting movement from the Devourer fleet. On the main display, the 12 enemy ships began to move, spreading out into attack formation. As they moved, space itself seemed to bend around them, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at directly. They're beautiful, whispered Navigator Yunwoo Kang, staring at the alien vessels. Like geometric art. Beautiful things can still kill you, Tae-hyung replied grimly. All ships, maintain formation. Wait for them to come to us. But the Devourers had their own strategy. Instead of charging directly at Earth, they began moving in a complex pattern around the planet, staying just out of range of human weapons. What are they doing? Asked Lieutenant Kwon over the communication channel. Testing us, Tae-hyung realized. They want to see how we fight before they commit to battle. The standoff continued for 30 minutes. The Devourers moved in their strange patterns while the human fleet held position, waiting. Both sides seemed reluctant to make the first move. Then everything changed at once. The largest Devourer ship suddenly accelerated toward Earth at impossible speed. Before the human ships could react, it had closed half the distance to the planet. All ships engage, Tae-hyung shouted. Do not let them reach Earth. The battle began with a fury that shocked both sides. The human ships opened fire with conventional weapons while moving to intercept the lead Devourer. Missiles and plasma beams struck the alien vessel's hull, creating brilliant explosions that should have crippled any ship. Instead, the explosions simply disappeared. The Devourer absorbed every bit of energy and continued its advance unchanged. Conventional weapons are useless, reported Major Park. Switching to quantum disruptors. Negative, Tae-hyung ordered. You're too close to the fleet. Fall back to minimum safe distance before firing. But as the human ships tried to reposition, the other 11 Devourers joined the attack. The aliens moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the human fleet and cutting off their escape routes. "Sentinel taking heavy fire," called out pilot Captain Myong-Soo Cho. His ship was caught between two Devourer vessels, and strange energy beams were tearing apart his hull. "I can't break free," Myong-Soo continued. "Hull integrity at 30%. Taehyung watched helplessly as the Sentinel was slowly torn apart. The Devourer weapons didn't explode or burn. They simply caused matter to stop existing, leaving perfectly spherical holes in the ship's structure. "Sentinel is gone," reported the sensor operator quietly. 9 ships remaining. The battle continued with desperate intensity. The human pilots used every trick they had learned in decades of training, but the Devourers seemed to anticipate every move. Their weapons were precise and deadly, picking apart human ships with surgical efficiency. "Defender is breaking up," came another distress call. 8 ships remaining. Avenger has lost main power. 7 ships remaining. Taehyung realized they were losing the battle badly. The Devourers were too fast, too well coordinated, and their weapons were too powerful. In another 10 minutes, the entire human fleet would be destroyed without accomplishing anything. "All ships, new strategy," he broadcast. "Forget about safe distances. Ram attacks. Get as close as possible and fire your quantum disruptors at point-blank range." "Sir, that's suicide," Lieutenant Kwan pointed out. "We're dead anyway. At least this way we take them with us." The remaining pilots acknowledged the order without hesitation. They had volunteered for a suicide mission, and now it was time to complete it. Lieutenant Kwan was the first to make her run. Her ship, the Guardian, accelerated directly toward the nearest Devourer vessel, while energy beams tore chunks from her hull. "Hull breach on Deck 3, she reported calmly, her voice distorted by the neural interface. "Life support failing. Beginning quantum disruptor charging sequence." Through the neural link, Jisoo could feel her ship dying around her. The life support systems were gone, and she was breathing recycled air from her emergency suit. But her connection to the quantum disruptor was perfect. She could sense the weapon's massive energy buildup as if it were her own heartbeat. "Guardian is at minimum range," she announced. "Firing quantum disruptor." The weapon discharged with a sound like reality tearing apart. A beam of pure destruction lanced out from the Guardian and struck the Devourer ship's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the alien vessel began to come apart. The quantum disruptor beam spread across the Devourer's surface like acid, dissolving the exotic materials that made up its hull. Geometric patterns collapsed into themselves, and brilliant energy discharges lit up the darkness of space. "It's working," Jisoo shouted triumphantly. "The disruptor is working." But her celebration was short-lived. The quantum effect spread beyond the Devourer ship, creating a sphere of destruction that expanded outward at the speed of light. The Guardian was caught in its own weapons area of effect. "Tell Earth," Jisoo began, but the transmission cut off as her ship dissolved into component atoms. One Devourer ship was completely destroyed, but the cost had been enormous. The quantum weapon had created a 1,000-kilometer sphere of destruction that would remain dangerous for years to come. "One down, 11 to go," Major Park said grimly. "Who's next?" The remaining pilots didn't hesitate. One by one, they made their attack runs, flying directly into Devourer weapons fire to get close enough to use their quantum disruptors. Major Park destroyed the second Devourer ship but died when the quantum effect spread to his own vessel. Captain Cho took out a third ship while his hull was already half destroyed by enemy fire. Each victory came at the cost of a human life, but the strategy was working. The Devourers were powerful, but they weren't invincible. The quantum disruptors were the one weapon that could hurt them. By the time half the Devourer fleet was destroyed, only 3 human ships remained. Taehyung looked at his tactical display and realized they might actually win this impossible battle. "Defiant, Liberator, and Vengeance are all that's left," he announced. 6 Devourer ships remaining. "We can do this." But the remaining Devourers had learned from watching their companions die. They spread out further, making it harder for human ships to approach. They also began using new weapons, energy fields that disrupted the quantum disruptors before they could fire. "My disruptor is offline," reported Captain Inseo Beck from The Liberator. "They're jamming the quantum field." "Same here," added Major Su-Yun Moon from The Vengeance. "I can't get a target lock." The Devourers had adapted to human tactics. They were using their superior technology to neutralize the quantum weapons while staying out of range of conventional attacks. Taehyung stared at his displays, trying to think of a new strategy. But before he could act, the Liberator was destroyed by concentrated Devourer fire. Captain Beck died fighting, using conventional weapons in a futile attempt to damage his attackers. 2 human ships against 6 alien dreadnoughts. The odds were hopeless. "Major Moon, I have an idea," Taehyung said, "but you're not going to like it." "I'm listening." "The Devourers are jamming our disruptors individually. But what if we combined our quantum fields, linked our weapons together and fired simultaneously? Is that even possible? The neural interfaces should allow it. If we synchronize our brain patterns, we might be able to merge the quantum effects." Major Moon was quiet for a moment. "What's the downside?" "If it works, the combined quantum field will be exponentially more powerful. It might destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers instead of just 1,000. "Including Earth's orbital stations?" "Including everything in Earth orbit." The communication channel was silent as both pilots considered the implications. They could potentially destroy the remaining Devourers, but they would also wipe out all of humanity's space infrastructure and kill thousands of civilians. "Earth Defense Command, this is Captain Rowe," Taehyung broadcast. "We need immediate evacuation of all orbital facilities. Everyone needs to get to minimum safe distance immediately." "Captain, we can't evacuate everyone in time," came the reply from Admiral Choi. "Some of our people are going to be caught in the effect zone." Taehyung closed his eyes. They were asking him to make an impossible choice, sacrifice thousands to save billions. "Admiral, if we don't do this, everyone dies anyway. Give the evacuation order." "Understood, Captain. Beginning emergency evacuation now. You have 20 minutes. For the next 20 minutes, the 2 remaining human ships played a deadly game of cat and mouse with the 6 Devourers. They had to. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Earth, and the galaxy was a very different place. Fleet Admiral Soyun Bay stood on the bridge of the GDF Indomitable, humanity's first Guardian-class starship. Through the massive viewports, she could see the construction yards of New Geneva Station, where ships from 12 different species worked together to build the next generation of galactic defense vessels. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Veltar High Command," announced Communications Officer Jamin Park. He was the nephew of the late Captain Jinwoo Park, who had first intercepted the alien distress call that changed everything. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The holographic display activated, showing Ambassador Zeth Kohler, the Veltar representative to what was now called the Galactic Defense Council. The tall, blue-skinned alien had been one of the first to arrive at Earth after the Devourer fleet was destroyed. He had expected to find a dead world. Instead, he had found humans rebuilding and preparing for whatever threat might come next. "Admiral Bay," Zeth Kohler said in accented but perfect English, "we have detected massive energy signatures in the Andromeda sector. The pattern matches pre-Devourer activity." Admiral Bay felt a familiar chill. "How many ships?" "Unknown. But the energy output suggests a force significantly larger than the one that attacked Earth." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The Devourers that had attacked Earth 5 years ago were apparently just the advance, scouts for something much larger. "What's the estimated time to arrival?" Admiral Bay asked. "If they maintain current speed, approximately 18 months. 18 months to prepare for an enemy force larger than the one that had nearly destroyed Earth." Admiral Bay turned to her tactical officer. "Commander An, what's the current status of the Galactic Fleet?" Commander Dayun An consulted her displays. "We have 47 active ships equipped with quantum disruptors, representing 8 different species. Another 32 ships are under construction." It was an impressive force by galactic standards, but Admiral Bay remembered the desperate battle 5 years ago. 10 human ships had barely managed to destroy 12 Devourer vessels. If the new enemy force was truly larger, they would need a different strategy. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," Admiral Bay ordered. "Emergency. Conference in 1 hour." As the communication ended, Admiral Bay walked to her ready room where the walls were lined with memorials to the pilots who had died saving Earth. Lieutenant Jisoo Kwan, Major Dongwoo Park, Captain Tae-hyung Ro, and 7 others who had sacrificed everything to protect their home. Their sacrifice had done more than save Earth. It had changed the entire galaxy. An hour later, the conference began with holographic representatives from every member species of the new Galactic Defense Council. The Veltar Empire, the Corvani Federation, the Crystalline Collective, and 9 other civilizations that had once fled from the Devourers now worked together under human military leadership. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Admiral Bay began, "we face a new threat. Intelligence suggests a Devourer force larger than anything we've encountered before." The alien representatives murmured among themselves. High Commander Vesk of the Corvani leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, the quantum disruptors worked against a small force. But if these new Devourers number in the hundreds, then we need a new approach," Admiral Bay finished. "Dr. Park, report on current research projects." Dr. Kyung-Soo Park, the younger brother of the late Captain Jin-Woo Park, activated his presentation. Over the past 5 years, he had become the galaxy's leading expert on Devourer technology and ancient weapon systems. "We've made significant progress understanding how the Devourers operate," Dr. Park explained. "They're not just ships. They're a collective intelligence connected across vast distances by quantum entanglement." He showed a diagram of Devourer fleet organization. "When we destroyed the 12 ships at Earth, we didn't just eliminate those vessels. We severed their connection to the main collective intelligence. That's why the attack on Earth stopped completely instead of continuing." Commander An raised her hand. "Are you saying we need to find their central command structure?" "Exactly. If we can identify and destroy the primary node of their network, the entire force becomes just empty ships drifting in space." The conference room buzzed with excitement. Instead of fighting hundreds of individual ships, they might only need to destroy one critical target. But High Commander Vesk wasn't convinced. "Dr. Park, how do we find this central command node? And how do we reach it if it's protected by hundreds of Devourer ships?" "That's where Captain Da-hyun An's new project comes in," Dr. Park said, smiling. Captain An stood up and activated her own presentation. "For the past 2 years, we've been developing what we call the Quantum Lance, a weapon that can target specific quantum signatures across vast distances." The display showed a massive device that looked like a combination of telescope and particle accelerator. The Quantum Lance doesn't fire at a target's current location. It fires at the target's quantum signature, hitting it no matter where it is in space or time. "Impossible," breathed science advisor Kethron of the Crystalline Collective. "You're talking about weaponizing quantum entanglement itself." "We learned from the best teachers," Captain An replied, gesturing to the memorial wall. "Our pilots 5 years ago showed us that impossible just means nobody's tried hard enough yet." Admiral Bay took control of the briefing. "The Quantum Lance will be built into a new type of ship, the Indomitable class Dreadnought. Each ship will be crewed by volunteers from multiple species and equipped with the most advanced technology the galaxy can provide." She paused and looked around the room. "But we're not just building ships. We're building a new kind of military force. One that fights not for conquest or territory, but to protect every world that calls the galaxy home." Over the next 18 months, the galaxy mobilized like never before. Shipyards that had been destroyed by the Devourers 5 years ago were rebuilt and expanded. Scientists from 12 species worked together to perfect the Quantum Lance technology. Military academies trained officers in the new combined species tactics that had emerged from human military doctrine. But the most important changes were happening on a personal level. Major Min Seok, one of the few surviving veterans of the Battle of Earth, now commanded a mixed-species squadron aboard the Indomitable. His crew included Veltar engineers, Corvani pilots, Crystalline navigators, and human gunners. Major O called Ensign Taehyung Lim from the sensor station. He was the son of engineer Ji-hoon Lim, who had died in an industrial accident while building the second generation of quantum disruptors. I'm detecting the Devourer fleet. They're even larger than we expected. The tactical display showed a force of over 300 Devourer ships spread across several light-years of space. At the center of the formation was a massive structure, unlike anything they had seen before. A geometric construct the size of a small planet. That's their command node, Major O realized. That's what we need to destroy. Admiral Bay's voice came over the fleet communication system. All ships. This is Admiral Bay. Today we face the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. But we're not the same species that ran from the Devourers 5 years ago. We've learned to fight. We've learned to work together. And we've learned that sometimes the impossible is just another word for difficult. The Galactic Defense Fleet spread out in attack formation. 79 ships carrying the most advanced weapons ever created, crewed by beings from 12 different worlds who had chosen to stand together against the darkness. Quantum lance charging, reported Weapons Officer Soo-Jin Kim from her station. Target lock on the command structure confirmed. All ships report ready, came the voice of Fleet Coordinator Young Ji-song. Admiral Bay looked at the tactical display one more time. The odds were still terrible. They were outnumbered 4-1 by an enemy that had never been defeated in conventional battle. But they weren't fighting a conventional battle. They were fighting as humans had taught the galaxy to fight, with desperate courage, impossible weapons, and the absolute refusal to surrender. All ships fire quantum lances, Admiral Bay ordered. 79 beams of pure quantum energy lanced across space, each one targeted at the massive command structure at the heart of the Devourer fleet. The beams struck simultaneously, creating a resonance effect that tore the alien construct apart at the subatomic level. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the 300 Devourer ships simply stopped moving. Without their collective intelligence to guide them, they became nothing more than empty hulls drifting in space. Target destroyed, reported Captain An quietly. All Devourer ships have ceased hostile activity. The galaxy was safe again, but this time, it had been saved not by desperate sacrifice, but by coordinated effort and shared technology. Admiral Bay opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. This is Admiral Bay to all vessels. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. All ships report status. The reports came in from across the fleet. No ships lost. No casualties. The perfect victory that had seemed impossible 5 years ago. As the fleet began salvage operations on the disabled Devourer ships, Admiral Bay reflected on how much had changed. 5 years ago, humans had been a